in our heads, in our brains, right? And so to begin by letting awareness drop out of the head and descend into the body. Huh? And a good place to begin is with the breath, the coming and going of the breath. Classical focal point of awareness. The good thing about the breath is that it's always present, it's constantly changing, it's readily available. And it's very sensate, huh? It's very concrete, very tactile. And you can be aware of the coming and going of the breath at the nostrils, or the rising and falling of your chest and belly as you breathe. I did this form of meditation for 10 years, for the most part. You just really enjoy the sensations of the breath. They're actually very rich and, again, constantly changing. And as you rest your attention on the breath, the thoughts and feelings will come and go, but no problem, nothing to do about that. Just allow them to come and go. If you find yourself caught up in thought or caught up in the narrative, the drama, just notice it and come back to the breath. This is the classic pattern, the classic injunction in mindfulness meditation. Huh? And there's something very pure and clear about sensation. Huh? It doesn't have the cloudy, vague quality of thought. It's very much what it is. Huh? So just enjoy that quality of sensation. only job is to be present, to be aware. The breathing takes care of itself. And now you can let go, if you haven't already, of the focus on the breath. And just allow your awareness to naturally expand, which awareness is naturally expanded, actually. So you're letting go of any focusing and allowing awareness to open to sensations in the body, throughout the body. Feet, your hands, your head, your legs, your arms, your torso, just opening to the full range, the full play of sensation. And then you may notice that the boundary between inner and outer is actually rather arbitrary, completely arbitrary, actually. And so your awareness opens to all sensation, all experience, inner and outer, just letting everything be the way it is. No need to control, no need to manipulate, no need to get anything to be different from the way it is. Complete relaxation of being as we open to what is just the way it is. You are the vast, awake, aware space in which everything is arising. All experience, inner and outer, arises in you, in the awareness that you are. thoughts, feelings are not a problem. They're just another arising in what you are. See, most of the time we're arguing with reality, aren't we? It's too hot, it's too cold. I'm not getting enough of this, or I'm getting too much of that. We're constantly manipulating, changing, pushing away, holding on. So this form of meditation, which is actually our natural state, is an opportunity to let things be as they are, to give up the struggle, to give up the argument. Just be. And when you meditate in this way, you may find that the separate, apparently separate meditator falls away. Awareness, separate from its object, dissolves into simply being, into awareness, only awareness, without a separate subject or object. I am awareness, and everything is contained in me, is an expression of me, of what I am fundamentally. So in this form of meditation, there's the opportunity to fall awake. Okay, so you can let the meditation as a separate doing. You can certainly continue to be open in this way throughout your day. That's the whole point of meditation, is to prepare you to be present and awake in each moment. And I'd like to dedicate the virtue of this practice of meditation to all beings, and particularly to the people who were killed yesterday in the synagogue bombing in Pittsburgh. It feels very fresh somehow. So thank you for letting me in this. You know, the sitting, this kind of sitting, has tremendous benefit to ourselves and to others, immeasurable benefit, as the traditions will say. It can't be measured. It may seem like a very simple practice, but when we let go of our self-preoccupation and let go of our attachments and just open in innocent presence, innocent looking to what is, and allow everything to be the way it is, this attitude permeates our life, and it's, of course, the ultimate antidote to what we find more and more these days, unfortunately. Although I don't think most people reflect this trend. I think it's just something that's getting a lot of publicity, but doing practice like this extends to every level: political, civic, social, and benefits all beings. So just as a reminder, you're meditating not just for yourself, but for everyone. Okay. So, namaste, welcome. This morning, it's a beautiful Sunday morning, wherever you are. So every time I choose a little topic, the topics are kind of arbitrary, just what happens to be coming to me in the moment. And of course, when we do our discussion, our dialogue, you're welcome to ask questions about anything to do with this direct approach to spiritual realization, to awakening, to non-dual reality. But for today, I wanted to talk a little about the importance of clear realization, clear and genuine awakening. There's a tendency, I think, of course, I work with people as a teacher, mentor, counselor, so I listen to many people's issues when they come, and there are other number of tendencies. One is to not recognize the importance of being very clear about who we are and what we are. There can be a tendency, particularly in the teachings nowadays, to emphasize heartfulness, an open heart, which is a beautiful thing, to emphasize being very kind to ourselves and embrace all of our imperfection, which I also very much emphasize. But at the same time, it's always, using my hands here, there's always both sides. It's also very important to get really clear on who we are, to have a clear recognition, and to have a genuine awakening. And we can listen to teachings on YouTube or Buddha at the Gas Pump, or read the books, and we can get a very good um, sort of conceptual representation, right, of the teachings, and we can have a sense, a feeling of who we are. We may have a felt sense of it. I am awareness. I am awakened awareness. I am consciousness, which is all pervasive, the nature of everything. There is no separation. There's only one. All these beautiful teachings, right, which can inform our lives in a very powerful way, in a very important way. But at the same time, we need to make them our own, right? We need to see them for ourselves directly and irrefutably, so that we know them not only in our heads, but in our hearts, in our bones, in our flesh, and this is what the great masters are talking about when they talk about genuine spiritual awakening. So on the one hand, when I emphasize that, when we emphasize that, it can create a kind of striving, right? A sense of, gee, I really want that. I need effort to get that. And then it sets up a kind of a tension, right? So we don't want any stress, to be introduced into the process. At the same time, there is aspiration. There is a longing to make it our own, to see it for ourselves, which I think fuels the process, right? Animates and fuels the journey of awakening. Without that, there is no path, and so there's a tendency to collapse the path, as I mentioned in my little blurb about this talk. There's a tendency to think, well, I already am awakened awareness, and I'll just rest in that. And then suddenly we think we are at the fruition stage. But as I mentioned, there's ground, there's path, and there's fruition. So the ground is, yes, I am awareness, I am consciousness, I am Buddha nature, I am whatever word we put to it. Words are not important, folks, they're just pointers. They're pointers to direct your attention to the truth of your being and to guide you to discover it for yourselves. So the fruition is the recognition of the ground for yourself in this body and mind, right? In the Zen tradition, this is called the gateless gate. In the Advaita tradition, it's called the open secret, right? It's a secret, but it's open, right? So if it's open, how come it's a secret, right? Because you don't recognize it yet. And until you recognize it, it's still a secret. But it's open because it's never been hidden, even for an instant. Okay? It's being shared openly by teachers, sages throughout history and in the present time, but it remains a secret unless you realize it for yourself. So there's that paradox. And you could call it a tension, not in the sense of stressful, but there's a tension between knowing it at one level, but not really knowing it at another level. There's a kind of dissonance, and that dissonance brings a longing, a desire, a motivation to experience it for ourselves. And this tension, this slight tension, is crucial to fuel the journey, to fuel the path. Otherwise, there is no path, right? Because there's no motivation. I think I've already seen it. I've read the books. I got the gist of it. I got the jargon. So no need to engage. That can be a kind of misunderstanding. At the same time, if we think of ourselves as completely ignorant and having no inherent awakening, then of course we're going to make ourselves miserable. So the truth of your being is always already present to you. It is that which is looking out through these eyes, experiencing life through this body and mind, awareness, consciousness, your true nature, your natural state, always already present and available. Right? And at the same time, unless you wake up to it, it's only inherent, it's only inchoate, it's only uh, there as the background, but not experienced in the foreground. So that is the kind of slight tension. In Zen, that's the gateless gate. Once you're on the other side of the gate, you realize there never was a gate to begin with. But when you're on this side of the gate, it seems like there's this big barrier between you and the truth. And once you've passed through the gate, the barrier, you realize that there never was a barrier. No. You realize that you always have been, always are, this awake, aware presence, which is actually the substance, the essence of what is. See? And I can say that to you. And when I say that to you, everything is contained in those words. The truth is fully expressed there, right? But it's only a pointer, right? It's only empty words, hollow, really, except in so much as they point to the truth of your being, which is a powerful, profound, alive, vital recognition, which animates this moment and animates all beings and things. It infuses life with meaning and purpose and truth and love, light, peace, contentment, right? But again, until you realize it for yourself, the fruits of awakening won't make themselves available, right? Which is why we continue to come to satsangs like this, right? Why we continue to read and listen. So it needs to emerge. If we trivialize it and say, well, it's always present, it's just who I am, there's no need to do anything, I'll move on to the next thing, then we don't recognize the precious nature, the profound nature of this realization. And on the other hand, if we make ourselves crazy in the pursuit of it, then of course we just add misery on top of our the suffering we already have, right? So I don't want to make you to make yourself crazy, but there needs to be that slight longing, that slight tension, that deepest, innermost request or innermost wish that my teacher Suzuki Roshi used to call it. It's called your innermost request. Right? The innermost request is to know the truth of my being once and for all. The calling. So to recognize and to answer that call, right? Now there's this lovely paradoxical saying the truth cannot be found through seeking, but only seekers find it, right? So there's that seeking, that desire for truth. Seeking itself won't necessarily, or at least inadvertently, bring us to truth. You can't make awakening happen. And at the same time, as I like to say, you can make yourself awakening prone, just like you can make yourself accident prone or become accident prone. Make yourself awakening prone, right? And this is the path that has been laid down for hundreds and thousands of years. Yeah. Now, if we see the path as something that takes us away from where we already are into some future that we aren't already, then we're in the progressive approach, which is misleading. Makes us think, it's something out there that we need to attain that we don't already have. So it's really the direct path. That's why it's called the direct path. It's pointing us back to the truth of our being that's already present and available. But again, unless there's a path, there may be no realization. So what is the path? The path is listening to the teachings and really taking them in beyond the mind, letting them really deeply affect you, okay, to act on you. And then it is to sit quietly, as we've been doing, and rest in being, rest in awareness, open to what is, just as it is. And then to, from time to time, you may feel an inclination to inquire, which may occur, and often occurs most effectively in those moments of deep resting. The question may arise, and to whom is this experience occurring? Who is experiencing this moment right now? That's the deepest question. Who am I, right? But I find that it's more productive to ask, who is hearing this sound? Who is experiencing this sensation? To whom is this occurring? This is very experience near, very direct way of asking the question. And let the question resonate. Okay. The purpose of the question is to take you home. It's a pointer to lead you to who you are. It's not something to try to figure out with the mind. It's like a bell that rings, and you let the bell resonate deep inside. Let that resonance affect you deeply, so it elicits some realization from deep inside your being. That's the point of the question, to evoke, to elicit the truth. So to listen, to rest, and to inquire. Listen, of course, can be read as well. The important point: when you read, when you listen, you're not listening or reading to accumulate more knowledge. So in that sense, just listening or reading a small amount can be the most effective, like a homeopathic dose, right? Less is more. And in fact, listening to the same teachings over and over again, reading the same teachings over and over again, if they resonate for you, can be very powerful. You don't have to go on to listen to more. There's a tendency to go on to the next teacher, the next teaching. Well, if I just go to listen to Muji, or if I go listen to Rupert Spira, if I go listen to, Ajashanti, or there's someone in England now who everyone's talking about. Let's listen to them, And so we're constantly moving and shifting, going on to the next one, And it's lovely to hear the truth expressed in different ways, and sometimes hearing it in a new and fresh way can open us to a new dimension. But at the same time, there's a great virtue in listening over and over and over again. There's an old expression, you're not going to go very deep if you keep digging a hole in a different place. I'll dig a hole over here, and then you come back and the dirt's fallen in again, and then you got to go dig a hole somewhere else, So keep digging the same hole with the same spade can be very powerful. Keep listening to the same teachings. And of course, the risk is that you become bored. And as my teacher, one of my teachers, Joachim Trunkpa, used to say, boredom is really good news, right? Being bored means the mind is starting to get tired. And when the mind gets tired, it opens the opportunity for the teachings to really go deep. Okay, so the tendency is I get bored with this teaching, I'm going to go on to the next teaching. So I would suggest to you that you keep moving through boredom, especially if the teachings resonate for you. When I met my teacher, Jean Klein, I listened only to Jean Klein. I read only Jean Klein for years. I had no interest in anyone else. I'm not saying that's the only way, just telling you what worked for me. I wasn't interested in Ramesh Balsekar. I wasn't interested in Ramana Maharshi. In fact, I knew nothing about Advaita Vedanta. I had no idea what it was when I met Jean Klein. But what I knew was this guy had what I wanted. And I was going to listen to him and hang out with him until I discovered it for myself. So, there are other ways of doing it. That's what worked for me, This person has it. This woman, this man, she has it. He has it. I want what she has, what he has. And I'm going to listen and really take it in and inquire until I've discovered it for myself, So until that realization is my realization, right? That's what it's all about. It's not about, oh, God, I just love the way this one expresses himself or herself. Oh, I'm just really in love with this teacher. It's great to be in love with a teacher, but that love is intended to bring you home to what you're in love with here, right? What you're in love with in the teacher, what you see shining through that teacher's eyes is what's shining out through these eyes. So the whole point is to find it in yourself, Fall in love with the teacher by all means. I was in love with what Jean Klein had to teach, but I was determined to make it my own, So it takes a great deal of patience. I have to laugh when people come to me and say, I've been reading this stuff for several years now, and I've been going to retreats and I still don't understand it. I'm starting to really get impatient, and I'm thinking, I just laugh, several years. I spent 10 years as a Zen monk, and then I spent another 10 years with Jean Klein, and finally, I would say, actually, after I met Jean Klein, within the first year, I had a profound awakening, but it took me years after that to clarify it, deepen it. So the fact that you've been listening to these teachings and going to retreats, which I highly recommend, by the way, because I do get people who come to me and say, yes, I've read all the books, I've been to Bat Gap, watched Bat Gap, and, and I'm still not understanding. And I say, well, have you ever done a retreat? They say, well, no, I really don't have the time for that. And I would say retreat is the next step if you're still dabbling in the books and the videos. Immerse yourself in retreat, throw yourself into retreat, or the School for Awakening, which comes up in January, if I may plug my event, which is an opportunity to come back week after week after week, deepen, clarify, receive the teachings in an ongoing way. This is what the monks and nuns did. They would go away for 3 months or a whole lifetime and receive those same teachings again and again, meditate again and again. So retreat is a powerful next step. But again, we need to have patience. We can't leapfrog over the process. It takes as long as it takes. And the thing I say most often to people who come to me is, I think you're doing great. You're on the right track. You're doing everything you need to be doing. Just keep going, right? Because sometimes I will say, go a little left or go a little right, or, do a little more of this, or, but mostly I say, you're on the right track. Just keep going. Okay? And you don't know how long it's going to take. You have no control over that. All you can do is immerse yourself in the process, give yourself wholeheartedly to the path. Okay? And I emphasize wholeheartedly, motivation is key. And just keep going. So I think it's wonderful to find a teacher who you really resonate with. If there is one teacher that you really resonate with, then by all means, stick with that person, And if several, appeal to you, then by all means, listen. But again, take it in small doses and let it really evoke something in you. Let it really get you fired up. Let it really animate you, huh? That's the whole point. It's already available to you, always. It's right here, wanting to wake up, wanting to express itself, wanting to look out and see that everything is an expression of what I am. That's what we're all looking for. That's what oneness means. Everything I see is an expression of what I am fundamentally. There is no separation between inside and outside, right? That's the recognition. But that has to be alive here, right? So that's my little teaching for today. And now we have the rest of our time together, another hour to explore. If you have questions about what I've been teaching today, then by all means. And if you have questions on other teachings you've received in the same vein, happy to pursue whatever line of inquiry and questioning you want to pursue. So I open it up to you. Okay. And I'll leave it to Anilai to take it from here.
Our first question is from Lisa. So Lisa, feel free to
Lisa.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you could maybe comment on any differences in the writings between John Klein and Krishnamurti that you might think of or wonder
Well,
about.
and I would say that I'm not so interested in, looking at the differences because, that becomes a more mental exercise, right? Oh, well, Jean Klein puts it this way and Krishnamurti puts it this way. I think they're both wonderful teachers, and one may appeal to you more than the other at different points in time, right? So, go with what appeals to you, with what you resonate with. I'm sure one could talk about the differences. I never studied Krishnamurti, so in fact, I'm not a person to ask about that. But even so, I don't think that's necessarily fruitful for you in terms of what will be most beneficial for you on your path. It's more like what resonates. You know, does Krishnamurti resonate for me? Then by all means, read Krishnamurti. Jean Klein, by all means, read Jean Klein.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. And of course, if there are no questions, I'm sure questions will arise, but if there are no questions, we have the wonderful opportunity to sit in silent presence together. And I will say that the most powerful teachings I have received from my teachers, Suzuki Roshi, Jean Klein in particular, Ajashanti, was in the silence.
Our next question is with Doug.
Okay, Doug, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When resting in awareness and particularly strong patterns of thinking come up, including, say, judgment of the practice, what advice do you have for addressing those? Is as simple as notice and let go, or can you say more?
Yeah, well, notice and let go. Obviously easier said than done, but that is basically, to notice. As I sometimes say, thank you for sharing, and then back to resting in awareness, right? Now, of course, what can be of interest in exploring is why are those thoughts so compelling, right? So, that's where the counseling comes in, and why I work with people is, then we can explore at some length what it is about certain thoughts, certain patterns of thoughts that keep sucking us in, right? Again and again and again. Why are they so arresting? Why are we so attached to them? Right? Why are they so troubling? So I think there can be a value in exploring, that. But in terms of sitting, when you're sitting, I think the best is simply to notice it and let go and come back. Then there can be a time when you then explore. I mean, you could do it during sitting as well, but it would be a different approach to sitting in which you're actually doing some inquiry around, what are the beliefs that cause me to keep thinking this way? And then you can inquire into those beliefs. I'm a great lover of the work of Byron Katie. Katie was one of my teachers. I spent quite a bit of time with Katie many years ago, and find that work very powerful. So, that kind of work can be very helpful. Okay, does that make sense?
Thank you.
That's helpful. You're welcome, Doug. Yeah. We all have our particular beliefs, and thought patterns and stories that are very arresting, right? Are very captivating, that we strongly identify with. It's the identification with the story or the narrative, which is what creates this sense, or at least perpetuates the sense of being a separate person, which is the source of our suffering, and which is why they're so arresting, why they're so captivating. So
At some stage,
to deconstruct those stories
hmm.
can be very helpful, as well as simply noticing them. Yeah, Doug, I'm sorry.
Yes, and that there seems to be a tension where there's some effort involved to get back to rest. The thoughts have a strong energy to them at that moment.
Absolutely.
Letting go is a simple phrase for that process, but it's as if the hand is clenched very tightly. Letting go does not just
Right.
breeze. So again, perhaps it's the inquiry that you recommend that is
Right.
antidote.
I understand. The hand is clenched so tightly around them. The whole instruction to let go makes almost no sense. It's like, what do you mean let go? I have no idea. Isn't my hand one with what I'm clenching? Is there? It's like I'm totally given over to the clenching, right? So that is true. But to keep coming back to this practice of resting over time has a powerful effect. And little by little, we find ourselves letting go more naturally, more and more. And then, of course, eventually, if we do have a direct realization of our true nature, then letting go will happen at a much deeper level. You see, because the awakening is a profound letting go in that moment of awakening, and then it has ripple effects. It permeates our life. And then once having seen who we are, even though we may fall back into old patterns, the ego may reassert itself, we can never completely unsee it. And it keeps working on us from within and, kind of undermining, sabotaging the ego's enterprise, It's reassuring. It's a saboteur. Awakening is a great saboteur. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Doug. Yeah. See some familiar faces out there. Mm-hmm. So in terms of framing a question, you might ask yourself, what drew me here this morning? What am I doing here this morning? What do I want to get out of this time together? And see if a question arises from there. Moments like these of being together in truth, which is what satsang means, are really precious. Huh?
We have a question from Lisa.
Lisa, yes. Can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, good.
Okay. I'm kind of wondering how one finds that space between sort of seeing and observing themselves and the immense conditioning, but not even conditioning as a negative, but there's the just, I'm trying to find the words, like the conditioning that you love, the conditioning that you feels right, but then that place of just having nothing. Like I'm wondering how to find the middle, that balance of being in both places.
I'm actually not sure what you're referring to. So could you explain a little more?
Like to have certain beliefs about the world, and you can't know anything to be absolute truth, but you still want that absolute truth, or at least to have it be part of how you view the world.
Well, see, in this approach, I'm not sure how familiar you are with, what I teach, this basic approach. But in this approach, beliefs are not necessary. And in fact, we're actually interested in seeing through the empty nature of all beliefs and seeing reality as it is directly. That's what we aspire to. That's what we're pointing toward, is to, toward a clear seeing beyond belief, right? So every belief is a relative perspective. It's a standpoint, right? No belief is more true than any other belief. They're just different standpoints, right? And so what we're looking to discover is that place of clarity and presence and awareness, which is beyond belief, right? And open to reality as it is, right? So we're not encouraging holding on to any conditioning, I mean, we're not going to slash and burn conditioning. We're not going in there, and doing violence to our conditioning, of course, and we are conditioned beings in ways that are essential. We know where, we know how to cook food and go to work and get our job done, and all that's conditioning that we really value, right? But we're talking about conditioned beliefs, stories about reality. We're interested in seeing stories as stories, simply, and then finding the truth beyond the story. Does that relate to your question? That was my understanding, at least.
Yeah, maybe it's just that the condition, not the conditioning, but the messages are always coming in all of the time.
Coming in from the culture at large, you mean?
It could, yes, that's one aspect. It could be an email. It could be, you mentioned the shooting in Squirrel Hill, and there's an email, there's a vigil, come to the vigil. And the mind says, oh, do I go to the vigil? Do I not go to the vigil? Do I want to go to the vigil? Do I not want to go to the vigil? Should I go? What do I want to do? Is that how one expresses? Is that the way I wish to express it? And the thousands of, in a millisecond, are there.
Right.
And to find that space of every moment to step back from it.
That's right. Yeah, that is the challenge, isn't it? To find what they call traditionally that still small voice, right? To find that still small voice inside that intuitively knows what's right and doesn't have to sort through all the different voices in your head, right? that's part of what we're doing here, is to discover that silence, that still place inside, where clear seeing, intuition, truth come from, right? So that's really what we're about, is to find that deeper place, you know. And in the midst of all that material coming at us from all directions, yes, it's confusing, isn't it? Hard to know.
Well, because there's no, I mean, there's right and wrong, but there's, when you look at like ethics or treatment of humans, but in the place of decisions, there really is not a right or a wrong.
There is no absolute right and wrong. There's only what wants to happen in this moment. And only you can know what's right for you to be doing in this moment. There's no absolute outside authority, right? And the way to find that is to be able to see beyond, or sense beyond, the welter of different stuff that's happening in your brain. And again, through meditation, through realization, which we're talking about here, then there's the ability to drop out of the mind into that deeper knowing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. It's a part of, again, the path that I described. Okay, yeah, it's a great question though, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And especially in this world now, we're being asked, or we're being called to respond, I think, more and more. How do we respond in a way that feels appropriate and in alignment with who we are and what we deeply value? So this is not a passive process either, right? It's about how to act, how to move through the world, how to respond, right? From that silence, the stillness, the truth of our being.
We have a question from Doug.
From who?
Doug.
Doug. Okay. Back to Doug here.
Wholehearted aspiration, but yet without effort or straining.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about the tension between
Well, that's the paradox. That's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why it's called Wei Wu Wei. You know, I think that's used in the martial arts as well. Yeah, doing, non-doing. It's a paradox. Can't be resolved. I can't even address it, right? How do you, effortless effort, it's often called, right?
Right.
Or as Suzuki Roshi used to say, follow the wave, drive the wave. Right? So you can imagine a surfer following the wave, driving the wave, right? What does that mean? Follow the wave, drive the wave, you know, effortless effort, right? So how does that look? I don't know. Moment to moment, what is that like? You discover that for yourself, you know? I mean, just like letting go, you talked about before, how to let go. What is that? Obviously it's an experiential thing. It's something you sense into. It's something you discover in your gut, right? In your being. Can't do it from above, right? It's got to come from inside, right? So it's something to be discovered in a very experiential way. And I think often, we have moments when it just happens that way, right? We find ourselves effortlessly doing what needs to be done in the exactly appropriate way. And there's no premeditation, there's no agenda, it's just happening appropriately to the moment. Those are beautiful moments, okay? How do I recapture that? How do I do that again, right? Well, I don't know, just got to discover it, right? I think in the martial arts, you're constantly asked to do that, right? Some of you do martial arts, but like Aikido, right? Aikido is like, I think Aikido is all about that, right? From what I understand. How do you do that? Someone's coming towards you, how do you do that? And you're tested again and again until you discover that sweet spot, So how do we do that in daily life? We find out, we discover.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
There's a question from Louise Ma.
Louise, yes. Oh, hi, Louise. Nice to see you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay. I have kind of a question sharing type thing.
Yes, please. I should have said that if you want to share as well as ask a question, that's fine too. If you have some insight to share or something you want to add, by all means, feel free to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so yesterday I went to the day-long intensive that Adia gave at Spirit Rock.
Oh, wonderful.
And I noticed, I told you that a few weeks ago at the Omega retreat, I just felt this kind of, I was really taken by surprise, like this intense connection and like mutual recognition that was happening that really came out of the blue for me. And
with a particular person.
With Adia and with Mukti.
With Adia and Mukti.
Yeah. And so, I mean, by then I'd already decided to move to the Bay Area and like get in and just, throw myself into all the things. And this time I went and I noticed like in the days leading up to it, I was like getting kind of, I was getting super awkward. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just this feeling of like, I was noticing parts of myself that was maybe like in some kind of subtle form of resistance, it's just kind of like kind of awkward and like nervous. And I don't know, it's
like a first date with someone you really like.
No, it's like a second date.
Second date. I really like that first date. Now we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it again and see what happens.
Yeah, it's really and I found myself like kind of in this kind of like kind of vacillating, like wanting to go up to the mic and be like, "Hey, I'm here," and then the other side is like wanting to just like hide in the like like pretend I'm not there. So I don't know, like what is that? I don't know what that is.
You described it. That's what it is.
It's I don't know. I guess I'm still surprised that I'm.
Well, how was it to be there after all that leading up to it?
I had this. I felt like throughout the day, I felt like throughout the day, I definitely was like peeling back more and more layers, and I left the day actually feeling really raw. I think I was tired. I woke up at like 5:30, and then I didn't have enough water, and I probably didn't have enough food by the time I left. And I think I was about to get my period. So I think all of these things added up to like, I just left the session just being like, oh, why do I feel so heavy? Like all of the insights and all of the experiences was just like amounted to nothing, so heavy, so isolated. And then I went to bed early. I journaled a little bit, and then I went to bed early. And then this morning I actually had like a very vivid dream of revisiting my pet rats who died like 8 years ago in the apartment fire. And just like waking up and like crying a lot, like grieving more. So I'm glad that, I feel like whatever process that started had some kind of a resolution.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I guess it's a very vulnerable maybe the feeling I have with him, like even as he was like I happened to choose a seat that was like right on the right against the walkway, so I could see him a little more clearly, and that happened to be the one where he would walk up and down, and every time he walked by it, I'm just like, oh, where do I look? What do I do? Why is it a big deal?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Sweet to share that. Yeah, there's nothing to be done about it. It just is what it is. It's just sweet. It's and it's partly an expression of how much it means to you and how important it is to you and how close to your heart the teachings are and the teacher is, and so I think it's just a reflection of that.
Yeah.
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 A wholeheartedness. We were
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm finding what you're saying today in the talk really relevant, because there were a lot of moments where I found that I was hitting that spot with him and his teachings. I was like, oh, this is like the 10th time I've heard this. I'm just gonna close my eyes now.
Right. That's great. Close your eyes and just let it wash over you.
Yeah.
And don't even try to understand it anymore.
Yeah.
You can give up trying to understand it and just let it wash through, and eventually it will bear fruit.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah. I
can
found that.
trust that
Sorry.
process. You can trust that. You can trust that process.
Yeah. I found that the pieces that were really I felt like I was just getting pelted over and over and over. And I know that this is like not him or the teachings even. It's my own kind of yearning of like um wanting to like, be of service or give back in some way that kind of sings. And it's funny how synchronistic the like kind of the collective mind is that day yesterday too, because people were going up to the mic and literally asking the question out of my mouth. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, trust the process, especially when a group, as you said, the collective mind, the collective was moving through that whole day, in a way, a magical, mysterious way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have a little mini second question, and
Sure.
it's about the collecting the teachings, and I am someone who is very intellectually curious, and like it is very valuable for me to learn through a lot of different kinds of viewpoints. And I went to visit the San Francisco Zen Center last week, and there was this lovely a woman priestess who was giving an 8-week talk on the Zen patriarchs. And it was interesting to kind of read. I just joined in on one class, and I looked at all the handouts, and it's interesting to see like the teachings that I've gotten through you and through Adia and through some other non-dual teachers, through like the pure like Zen, not even like through Alan Watts or through Suzuki Roshi, like just very kind of dry textbook style, talking about like the different forms of concentration, the different forms of seeing. So I don't know, I left kind of being on the fence. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm maybe a little inundated now with teachings, and I originally showed up at 7:30 to do the sit. So but then on the other hand, I'm also like very curious, and I'm like, well, maybe it would be valuable. So I'm kind of on the fence.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I think intellectual curiosity, of course, is fine for what it is. But I do think that the danger, the risk is that you'll make things much more complicated than they need to be. And Buddhism, which of course, I was a Buddhist monk for 10 years, and studied a lot of, and also studied Tibetan Buddhism as well. So Buddhism is full of complex lists of this and that, and multiple techniques that go on endlessly. And you can get lost in that.
Yeah.
So that's the risk, is it just gets endlessly complex and takes you away, which is why I teach the way I do. I don't teach Buddhism. I teach truth. I'm not interested in teaching Buddhism. Other people, they may want to teach Buddhism, and that's fine. But, Buddhism is Buddhism, and awakening is awakening. And if Buddhism leads to awakening, great. But if Buddhism, leads into a kind of confusion and unnecessary complexification, if that's a word, then it's not helpful. So I have great respect for the Buddhist teachings, the essence of the Buddhist teachings, but I think it can get very complex very fast.
Yeah.
And you can get lost in the forest and never find the trees, never find the essence.
Yeah.
So that's my caveat to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you're a Gemini, which and Geminis like to see all the different points of view, and they're very intellectually curious. Curious is a Gemini word. So to just notice that as it's natural to you, but it's also, it can be a pitfall, right?
Yeah.
So just to be aware of that.
I guess what I was sold on in sitting in on that class was that she was gonna go over like old like poetry written by the master.
Right, I know. Read the poetry of those great teachers.
Yeah.
Bodhidharma, right? The third patriarch, the sixth patriarch. Read their sutras. Read the third patriarch's, Unbelieving in Mind Sutra, or the sixth patriarch sutra.
Right.
That's where the essence is. And even that, you can get caught in that. But if you find the essence in those words, that's what it's about. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Excuse my little dose of astrology there.
Our next question is with Irene.
With who?
Irene.
Irene. Okay, let me see. Where's Irene? Find you. There you are. Hi.
Hi. Can you listen? Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, your introduction, you mentioned something about that you cannot guarantee somebody awakening, but you have, I don't know, methods or something to be more awakening prone. And I would like if you could talk about that.
Oh, the methods?
Yeah, what you mean by being more awakening prone in your daily life. I don't know, something more like a method, if you, something that you can share.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would recommend my book, Wake Up Now, which goes into great detail, and also my other book, Beyond Mindfulness. So if you're looking, they both have quite a few guided meditations in them, and I talk about some of the techniques or the methods. But we did one today, of course. We began with let's see, where are you? You disappeared. There you are. We began with a form of meditation, right? So the basic meditation is sit, open to what is, and let everything be the way it is. That's the basic meditation instruction. Everything else is kind of a way of easing into that,
Okay.
So if you want to sit, you could do what I did, which is begin with the breath. Or what I had you do, begin with the breath, then allow awareness to naturally open to sensations inside and outside, and then just, formless meditation, no focusing at all, just open awareness, resting in awareness as awareness, and, that's okay. And then the other is the inquiry, which I also mentioned, right? Wondering, who am I? Who is experiencing this moment right now? To whom is this occurring, right? That's it right there. And then listening to teachings, perhaps having a relationship with a teacher, hanging out with other people who share your interest and who are also seekers in the same way. And you can talk with that can be helpful.
Okay.
That's pretty much it, you know.
Okay.
Again, there's no cookie cutter approach here.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing is, as the Tibetans say, everything rides on the tip of your motivation. Okay, motivation is key. How dedicated are you to discovering who you are? Most important. So that will, again, it's not about efforting, but it's about motivation. It'll, you know, it's like an engine that drives you. I really want to know. That's what brings us to realization. It's the itch that can't be scratched, you know,
Mm-hmm.
until it is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Yeah. Julie, do you have anything to ask or share? Hope you don't mind if I call on you.
Hi, Stephen. Good to see
Hi.
you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. I'm just very much enjoying the silence that's behind your words and the community that's holding it. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's the whole point, isn't it? The silence behind the words.
Yeah. So my mind has just kind of dropped away.
Great.
And but I'm asking the question, you know, who is it that's experiencing this? And there's really no words.
Great. Great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Good to see.
Someone else? We have about 15, 20 minutes. Anyone? Yeah, George, I was going to call on you actually. So great. Good to see you.
Very good seeing you, Stephen. It's been a while, and it's really great seeing you again. I have I guess, a paradoxical question. You talked about the silence behind the words, and I really don't get that. Is there a kind of transmission of information behind the words? I guess.
Not information, George.
Okay, well, I'm asking you to use words how to describe the silence behind the words. So can you say, all right, can you edit? Okay, all right, now I understand it's not information. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So what we're after is not information. I think it's an interesting slip, though.
No, you're right, absolutely. It's
yeah. There's a transmission happening, but it's not information.
Okay, so what is the transmission that's happening in the silence?
That's the question. That's your question. That's your koan.
That's my question.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no answer for you. That's your question. What is the transmission that's happening in the silence?
Well, let me ask an easier question. Is there a transmission that happens? Well, obviously there is. You refer to it.
Yes. So what is it? That's your question.
I guess I'm just going to have to stick with that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I mean, not okay, but yes, okay.
Good. Okay. Yeah, just sit with that. There's a famous saying attributed to, I think it was Bodhidharma. He said, direct transmission outside the scriptures, no dependence on words. No, it's actually special transmission. Well, direct transmission outside the scriptures, no dependence on words or letters. Directly seeing into the human heart mind, see true nature, become Buddha.
Okay, well, let me ask this.
That's just another way of saying
okay.
It's your koan.
Okay.
So, special transmission outside the scriptures, no dependence on words or letters, no information, directly seeing into the human heart, the human mind, the nature of mind. Okay. See true nature, become Buddha. Okay.
All right. So if I have any sort of awareness or any sort of perception or any way of receiving not just information, but just contacting the world, it's through the senses.
No.
So I understand that, words.
No, there's another way.
Okay, there's another way other than through the senses. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I really don't.
Not through the mind, not through the senses.
Not through any of the senses. Huh. Okay, I don't get it. I'm gonna have to just. Okay.
Okay.
Not through any of the senses. So I'm receiving, not information, I'm receiving something, energy, something.
Something. Right.
Okay, you say so.
Something you can't put your finger on and it's not a sensation, it's not a thought. Something is being transmitted. What is it? See, that would be the classic Zen koan.
Okay.
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 Sit with that.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it's great koan for you.
Okay.
Anyone else? You just feel free to share any insights you've had, or any question related to this whole big theme of waking up. Feel free. Don't feel it has to be a certain way. I'm very open to whatever your question might be. Yes, Doug.
You mentioned earlier retreat as a valuable thing to do. And would you say a little bit about the retreat that occurs at the end of the School for Awakening?
Oh, it's a virtual retreat. It's
Yeah.
also, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could you describe it a bit, please?
It's just what we're doing here.
Okay.
More of the same. Again, form-wise, it's just the same form. What's amazing is in the School for Awakening, we meet, I think it's 12 classes, and then we have a retreat at the end. And, somehow, even though there's nothing to say, I always find things to say, but it's all coming from the silence, right? And so there are different ways of talking about the truth that, different pointers that are effective at different times for different people. And, we go through it week after week, and certain things will resonate for you and light up for you and, really catch you, and others won't. And that's why there's the virtue of meeting week after week after week and listening again and again and again. Different ways of expressing. I have notes that I draw on, but it's mostly coming from, the truth right now. There are so many different ways of expressing what's true, and that's all it is. That's the content of those classes. That's the content of the retreat. It's the same thing. We're just, but it's not boring. I don't find it boring, believe it or not. And, people in the school don't seem to find it boring. You see, and eventually over time, it seems to us like we're chipping away at the resistance, at the misunderstanding, right, and at the belief systems, whatever. So it's more of the same. Yeah. Yes, Edward. Yes.
Hello. Hello, are you listening clearly?
I hear you clearly. Where are you?
Hello, I'm in Brazil, though I am Argentinian.
You're in Brussels. Okay, wonderful.
Brazil, South
Brazil.
America.
Oh, Brazil. Brazil.
Yeah.
From Argentina.
Yes. Stefan, you were talking about, you were talking about transmission, and you see, my story is, I was Osho Sannyasin like 20 years ago. I lived in Pune for a year. Was really beautiful life, not really concentrated so much in meditation, though I did some groups, really powerful, whatever. Then I kept on living in Europe and going to India once a year, till I went to this, maybe you're acquainted with these Neo-Advaita teachers that came from Ramana Maharshi, then from Papaji. So many sannyasis that were my mates in the ashram. When Osho died, Osho passed away, they went to see Papaji in the north of India. Okay, then all this wave of teachers, of Advaita teacher, I would call them, came to Pune. Then I came to meet them as a natural thing, natural development of Osho teachings, you could say. And then, okay, I went to see Dolano, that is a very powerful satsang teacher. She lives in Pune, has a low profile on the web. Anyway, I went to see her, blah, blah, blah. Then I met a very low profile French guy, ex-follower or ex-attendant of Dolano. And then with him, I was sitting in a bar. I really didn't know him. I just met him there, and I had this full awakening, I would call it, or recognition, you can say, that lasted me 10 days on a row. And I said, okay, I did it, man. I was not anymore, whatever you can say. I am Buddha myself, whatever. I was just there watching the sky, the clouds, completely happy, though I was not there anymore. There was nobody else.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then this
What
was
happened?
in 2000.
What happened?
And then I was kind of enjoying this. Nobody but was enjoying this. And I can recall this way, unaware, I started to play again with the character, kind of playing, okay, there is no Eduardo anymore. I was kind of playing with it, or it started to rebuild itself. And I was not really prepared for this. And okay, I started to play the character again, and I lost it. Oh, how can I lose this? But yes, I lost it. That was my deepest experience, much more than meditating. I'm not really a good meditator,
Right.
I have to say so. Though my question to you is, then, okay, I grew up a family, I have a kid since then, so I never got to India anymore. And okay, somehow I want to retake my path. I'm 50 years old, 51, and I'm looking again. So I say, what worked really for me? This is what really worked the most, to see and have this, you can call it transmission, whatever. And my question is, shall I look for an Advaita teacher again and go and have more presence with him? Because that was what worked for me the most.
Right. It's possible. Again, I don't know what is best for you. Have you tried? Again, first I would say that what you discovered, the essence of what you discovered through this experience, is not lost. It has never been lost. Okay. So I would say that, first of all, it is not lost. It may be hidden, right? And you may be now caught in identification again, but it is, it hasn't gone anywhere, right? The experience has left. You're not having the same blissful experience of gazing at the clouds and being, sort of blissfully one. That is a state, right? The state
Yes.
has gone, but that which abides, that which it lasts, is not a state. The stateless state, the natural state, has not gone anywhere. And that is what is looking through these eyes. That is what is experiencing this in each moment. So the attention needs to be turned back upon yourself and back upon that which is aware. What is that which is aware? Who is that? What is that? And I think you'll find, if you pursue that, if you look for that, that it's still there. It's never left. And in discovering that, maybe there'll be some recognition. Oh, I have this story that 20 years ago I had this experience, and I've never had that experience again. But in fact, in reality, it's still the same. The one who's looking is still the same. It is. It's never changed. And it's not Eduardo who's looking. It's that which is aware of Eduardo. It's that which is aware, awareness itself, right?
Okay, I understand what you mean perfectly well, though somehow some part of me is clinging to this
Right.
automatic unidentification, because of course I'm referring to a fact that is past, that was an experience. some part of it was an experience, but experiencing the so then I'm clinging to this.
That's right. You're clinging to
longing of an identification.
Yeah, you're trying to recreate an experience. You haven't, like a nostalgia for an experience that happened 20 years ago, and you're trying to recreate it. Forget it. Let it go. It's gone. That experience is gone. Don't try to regain it or recapture it, okay? Just be here, in this present moment now, and open to what is, and open to the presence, the awake, aware presence that has never gone anywhere and has never changed and is undisturbed by states that come and go, and is not concerned about what happened in the past. That which is here now. Okay, that's what's important. Okay. Yeah, you are attached. You're trying to recreate something. It can't be recreated, And yet, here's this arising now. What is aware of this? In the midst of your family life, with your kids, and right now, Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let go of the story about what happened. It's just a story, after all. It's a nice story. What happened in India? It's like a travelogue. I went to India and I had this experience. So what? What about right now? Right? In this moment. Let go of the story and just open to what is right now. Okay?
Thank you, Stefan.
Okay, my friend. Lovely to see you and talk with you. See. So we're coming to the end here, and I just want to thank you all for coming and joining together. Again, there's something very beautiful and powerful about just being together in this way and inquiring in this way. Nothing quite like the community that forms around these deep questions and the truth of our being. And again, I invite you, if you're interested, to consider the School for Awakening, which begins in January. It's 4 months, a little more than 4 months of intensive inquiry, teachings, guided meditations, etc. So some of you might be drawn to that. And